The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason, along with Sue 𝐂𝐫𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐿. This is the show where we talk about everything happening in the world of pop culture. Great guest today, Academy Award-winning producer Bruce Cohen will be joining us. His brand new movie, Blink Twice, is opening everywhere on August the 23rd. In the meantime, Sue Ballou, how you doing?
I'm good.
Excellent, excellent. So I am fascinated by the subject that you suggested we talk about before we get to Bruce.
So as I was looking online for material for our open,
Yes.
I had stumbled upon something that I thought was so cool.
Okay.
And I don't know how long ago it was that they asked the cast of WandaVision what sitcom they would like to be trapped in.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, that would be a fun thing to talk to
That
Steve
is
about.
good. That is good.
So mine would be the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Oh, the old one, the Trip Over the Ottoman one? Yeah, that one?
Yes. And the reason why I thought it would be fun to be trapped in that is, someone who wrote for TV, and there was a writer's room. And just, first of all, it was, to me, one of the funniest shows when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And hanging out with Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke and Maury Amsterdam and Rose. I mean, the cast was hilarious.
It was.
So that's my pick.
And you'd be right at home in a writer's room.
Exactly. Run
by Carl Reiner. That'd be amazing. So I've got a very similar sort of theme. So, I've done my share of television news, and I would go back and be a news anchor at WJM in Minneapolis with Mary Richards, and Lou Grant is my boss. Murray Slaughter, Ted Baxter is just this goofball doing sports. Sue Ann Nivens, who's like the Martha Stewart of her day, all that stuff. I would be the lead news anchor. My best pal would be Mayor. Me and Murray would make fun of Ted. I've seen enough of the show to know how to get along with Lou. I think that would be fantastic. And by the way, I would do that I would do that for years. That's a great place to live. Like you picked a profession that you would be good at too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we both had the Mary Tyler Moore connection in ours.
And we both had Mary Tyler Moore. Yeah. So that's good. That's good. I was reading about J-Lo. We've talked about J-Lo on the show before. And so I read, first of all, I don't know if we talked about this. I do two shows. I'm not sure what winds up on one show and what winds up on the other. But have we talked about J-Lo and the fact that you can't look her directly in the eye?
I think we may have mentioned that, but
okay.
It's worth repeating.
Okay. So I read something else that says that J-Lo requires in her rider that anybody who prepares her coffee, it must be stirred counterclockwise.
What, when did this type of trait, this insidious, just such disrespectful trait, did it spark when these people got famous, or was it just innately always there? Because I heard something so ridiculous when I was working on Sex and the City. Michael Patrick King had worked on a show with Shelley Long. I forget the name of it. And she would never talk directly to anybody. She had a middle guy who she hired. So if you had a question for Shelley Long, you had to tell it to him, and then he would relay it to her.
Wow.
You could not talk to her. You're on a show with her.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. Now, I heard a story once about Barbara Streisand. Again, she's super micro manager, that kind of thing. So she was going to receive a Golden Globe for best life or whatever that is, best career, most contribution to the arts. And so she was going to sit in the ballroom for the Golden Globes. And she said, I want to see how I'm going to look. And so she had her assistant go over and sit in the seat where she was going to sit and had the room lit the way it's going to be lit.
Mm-hmm.
And they shot some film or took pictures and stuff. They brought it back to Barbara Streisand, and she said, oh, no, this is terrible. You need to go back. This lighting is wrong. I need more of this. I need more of this. Send somebody back. The assistant goes back, sits in the chair again. They take a bunch of pictures. It took 4 times for Barbara Streisand to finally be happy with the way she was going to look in that chair when she accepted the award at the Golden Globes. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but, I get it to a certain extent.
What?
Well, no, just the idea of wanting to make sure that everything looks right when you're on camera. Now, look, she's a diva to begin with, so
Sure.
Let's add that to the equation. But did you see Faye Dunaway's documentary?
I did.
Okay, so she was apparently very, very difficult and self-proclaimed very difficult. She talked about it.
She acknowledges it. Yeah.
And she had a similar thing. And even in the interview, in the documentary, she was complaining about, no, this doesn't look, I don't like the angle.
Oh, yeah, she didn't like her angles in the documentary.
She didn't like her, yeah. So, I mean, I could see that more than somebody telling you have to mix the cream in my coffee counterclockwise.
Yeah, I guess
mean,
that's true.
to me,
that's next level.
That gets into an area where there's something really wrong with you.
See, I think it comes down to having people. Like she's talked about this, and apparently she's had conversations with her soon-to-be ex-husband, Ben Affleck, soon-to-be double ex-husband. Is that a phrase? Double ex-husband?
Double X.
The old double X.
I can't wait till it's triple X.
Triple X, exactly. So she had a conversation with him and said, look, it's hard being J-Lo. I have to be J-Lo 24/7. And there's an element to that is true. Everywhere she goes, she's got to look like she's, just stepped off a runway or look like she's ready to perform or whatever. So I do get that. And when you're surrounded with people, you ask them to do all kinds of stuff for you.
But, I don't buy into that. I have to look like J-Lo, because I have seen actresses who are very famous actresses on the street, and they're not wearing any makeup. And I love that. It's like, this is what I look like without makeup, and it's okay. So I don't buy that, it's this persona to have to be this persona every minute of the day. I mean, it's just like, this is on a whole nother level. But when I was doing the Osbournes, what I loved about Sharon Osbourne is that she could give a shit what she looked like first thing in the morning or before she went to bed. She let us film her in every moment of her life. And when we did Newlyweds, Jessica wouldn't let us see her a certain way, or, we weren't allowed in the bedroom. I think we were in the bedroom once when they were packing for a trip because we needed it for the story.
Yeah.
But Sharon, she's in bed. Her hair's in like 10 different directions. She's wearing pajamas. Maybe sometimes it was buttoned incorrect, whatever.
Oh, yeah, right.
That she let us see her, warts and all. And that was what reality TV was. I mean, that's what she looked like in the morning. She didn't put makeup on every time the camera was on her. So I don't know. I just find it, to me, that it's just so narcissistic. And look, it sounds kind of, it's redundant for me to say it's narcissistic about an actress or an actor.
Yeah, right.
But to me, that is a flag right away that this person is just difficult up and down.
So I remember you and I were doing WNEW in New York, and we came out to California to Los Angeles to do the CBS junket. Do you remember this?
Yes,
We
sure.
did all kinds of interviews. We interviewed really cool people. And the one that I remember is Amy Brenneman, who was the star of Judging Amy. And she has this, or had at least, I don't know what she has now, but this gigantic sort of beautiful hair, right? And so we were waiting for her. I don't know if you remember this or not. But we were waiting for her, and she was out in the hallway, and she was getting her hair brushed. Somebody was brushing her hair.
Okay.
And when her assistant walked in, and we said, "Where's Amy?" They said, "Hair team." Like she had a team of people wrangling her hair, brushing it out. And all I said was, "It's radio."
And also, what it's like the Westminster Dog Show. I mean, I have this like image of her sitting on a stool and somebody blow drying like an Afghan's coat.
Yeah, no, it's true. And at the end of the day,
Right.
it was just a radio interview, but her hair looked great.
So ridiculous. So ridiculous.
So I've got something that is the opposite of J-Lo.
Okay.
And I would argue this is the opposite. Jamie Lee Curtis, who won an Academy Award last year, says she doesn't like the hierarchy on a set. Like she doesn't like being the person who everybody knows their name and she doesn't know anybody else's name. She doesn't know the grip or the gaffer or the best boy or any of those other people that are on the set. So she, when she makes a movie, has everybody wear a name tag. So she doesn't have to say, "Hey, grip lighting person." She says, "Hey, Ted, I need this," or "Let's do that," or "Good to see you." So she wants to eliminate the hierarchy by saying, "No, we should know everybody's name on a movie set." To me, that is the opposite of J-Lo. What do you think?
So respectful.
Yeah.
So respectful. You know, and I may have brought this up once before, but when I first started doing stand-up, when you would audition at clubs, they would put your name in a hat and you had a number attached to your name.
Right.
So when you were out in the bar waiting to go on, they would never say your name. They would say, "number 2.
Oh, really?
That's how they would refer to you, by your
Wow.
number. And it's like, you know, it's bad enough and scary enough to go on stage doing stand-up comedy for the first time at these iconic clubs,
Yeah, right.
and they're calling you by a number.
Yeah. "Hey, number 2, you're up." Wow, that's
So
rough.
I love that she does that. I think that is just class, you know. And
That is
also,
super classy. Yeah.
One thing, and I don't know if you remember this, but when we were doing WNEW, we went and did a personal appearance at a elementary school. It was part of the pencil program,
Okay.
and we spoke to the kids and told them our story of how we got into show business and how we got into doing radio together. And every morning, and we were there for it,
Mm-hmm.
the principal would make an announcement, and she knew everyone's name. She went around. She like actually identified kids in I think it was in the kindergarten class. It
Yeah.
was the class that we talked to. And when she came in and spoke to the class, she knew every student's name.
Well, don't you think every teacher has to learn every student's name?
Not the principal doesn't.
Oh,
she was the
principal, right?
He was the principal of the school.
Oh, yeah. That's good. I have no recollection of that.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure you don't have a recollection of a lot of things. I think it's just, you know, you picked and choose what you wanted to remember during
Oh,
those
you think
years.
that's what it is?
That
I
was-
pick and choose?
I think it was kind of selective remembrance because no, seriously, because it was, you know, we went through a very, very difficult time, and you were going through a difficult time when you were there.
Yeah.
So, and then in turn, I was going through a difficult time because you
Right.
were going through a difficult time. So-
Exactly. So it was just a difficult time. Why do I remember it as being so much fun?
because it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
I've got, do you have any audio tapes of that show? Any cassette tapes?
I do.
Do you? Have you ever gone
do.
back and listened to them?
No.
Yeah, I'm so curious to know how, like, if I was listening to him now, I've got one sitting right there. I wonder what it would sound like. I wonder how the show was. I'd like to go back and listen.
I have to. They're somewhere in a bin. But what I'd like to do is I should transfer them so they don't,
Digitize them?
digitize them so they don't disintegrate.
Yeah, I'd just like to
I
get
have
a
a bunch.
cassette player and listen to them. Do you really? I only have one. Of all the shows we ever did, I have one cassette tape.
I'm going to digitize them, and then I'll get you I'll put it on a drive for you.
Okay, good. All right, well, here we go. You ready? We saw a wild movie called Blink Twice, and our guest today is one of Hollywood's most successful producers. His films include Milk, Silver Linings Playbook, The Flintstones, and American Beauty, for which he won the Academy Award for Best Picture. As I mentioned, his latest film is Blink Twice. It stars Channing Tatum. It's directed by Zoë Kravitz. Opens everywhere on August the 23rd. Bruce Cohen joins us. Bruce, it's been forever. How you doing?
Steve, it's great to see you. And Sue, it's great to meet you, and very excited to be here with you too.
Cool. So we have seen Blink Twice and loved it. It's fascinating. It's scary. It's all that stuff. I want to talk about a lot of stuff with you. Definitely want to talk about Rustin, which came out last year, which we absolutely loved, and go back, talk a little bit about American Beauty. But let's start here with Blink Twice. As the executive producer, you put the whole project together. It's a story of a cocktail waitress and her friend who wind up on a private island owned by a tech billionaire played by Channing Tatum. I'm assuming it starts with Zoë Kravitz and the screenplay that she co-wrote. When did you first engage with this project?
Well, I'm the producer, just to correct, which we're the people who actually do the business of putting the whole movie together.
Of course.
Executive producers can sometimes be very helpful, but you never really know what they've done. But the producers are the one who actually do the film. And trivia question or answer for the listeners is, if you've been wondering, when you see that PGA mark after the names of producers on most films now, that's the Producers Guild of America. And those are the people that the Producers Guild have determined actually did the day-to-day job of producing the film through the whole process. So that's a good guide. A lot of people say, like, well, who actually produced the movie? Well, in this case, it's the 3 PGA marked folks on Blink Twice, which is me, Tiffany Persons, and Garrett Levitt. And then I moved on to my really fun and beautiful full disclosure. Zoë Kravitz is my goddaughter.
Oh, wow.
I held her for the first time when she was 45 minutes old.
Wow.
We have had a really close and beautiful relationship for her entire life, to the point where when she had an idea for this movie, along with her co-writer, Eric Feigenbaum, it was a couple pages description. She was reluctant to send it to me because she didn't want to sort of like mix up family and business, and she didn't know whether she should. And Eric, happily for the whole story, said, wait a minute, Bruce Cohen is your godfather. You need to send this to him right away. And so she sent me the 4 or 5 pages. And I actually remember I was waiting to go into a meeting on the Upper West Side. I was standing right outside of Central Park on 5th Avenue. And it was a beautiful day. And I was clear that she had sent me the pages just for my opinion as to whether she had something there. I read them, looked out, called her back immediately and said, not only is there something there, I think this could be a huge film and I want to produce it if you'll let me. And so that's how I came on board Blink Twice.
Wow. So when I'm always curious about this, when the script is written, what is the process before you're actually shooting? Like how much rewriting is done and how much rewriting is done even when you're filming the film?
Well, it's a different development process on every movie. It's one of these things I love about producing is it's like snowflakes. No 2 jobs are the same. But in the end, also keep in mind is that between a script and shooting, you need a director, a cast, and financing. So those might sound simple, but those are really big mountains to climb. And most scripts never actually get into pre-production because they don't manage to put all those things together at the same time. And in the case of Blink Twice, we really wanted to start with, well, first I should say, Zoe, there was some thought as to whether she would play the character herself, because she's primarily known as an actress, but she really felt from the beginning that she wanted to only direct her first film, which I thought as a producer was very smart. So we knew we needed to find someone to play Frida. But we also thought that a great place to start would be Slater-King. And that we might, if we were able to get a huge movie star to play the role, that would really help us get all the other elements together, including the financing. The tough part of that was that it's a very demanding, complicated, one could almost say controversial role. So would huge movie stars even be interested in playing this part was a question we didn't know. And I remember Zoe called me one day and said, you know who I think would be brilliant in this role, and he's actually on record as a feminist and think might really respond to the script, is Channing Tatum, who she never met at that point. And so we sent Channing the script to his company, Free Association. His company loved it. They came on board to produce with me. Channing came on board to play Slater-King, and we were really off and running at that point. And then the side benefit later was that Channing and Zoe fell in love, and now they're engaged to be married. And that's a whole other thing, which I actually love as a twist on the typical Hollywood trope. And it's sort of perfect for this movie that it's actually the female director is having the relationship with the male movie star is, I think, a great twist on that old story.
I just want to say something. I'm so glad that we're talking to you about this, because I thought that, oh, they were dating. Of course he's the lead in it. So that's a great story.
Yeah, that's how they met. His first instance of knowing Zoe was he got sent the script.
Wow, that's amazing. So Blink Twice is crazy, and it's disturbing, and it's edge of your seat kind of stuff. This show is coming out before the movie comes out, so I don't want to spoil anything. What do you feel comfortable saying about it?
I'm deeply in love with this movie. I think that Zoe's filmmaking is absolutely masterful. It's really astonishing, separate from being her godfather. It's actually astonishing for a first film how accomplished it is. And part of why I feel that way is because there are several different tones and vibes at work in the film. It's through most of the movie, it's very funny. It's very entertaining. It also hits traditional thriller horror notes, but then it also has a real layer of trauma and serious issues underneath it. And that's a really potent and, I believe, highly unusual combination. To get that many things happening in one movie is really bold, really daring, really exciting. And the fact that she and the cast pull it off so brilliantly is just super exciting. So I'm hoping and feeling like audiences will really dig that. One of the things, which is total music, of course, to a producer's ear, that we're hearing over and over again from people who see the movie in advanced screenings, is some version of, oh my God, I need to see that movie again right away. So we really think that's a testament to how enjoyable and entertaining it is, but also how complicated it is. There's so much to keep track of that you kind of need to see it a second time. And that's one of our fun ad lines, which of course we're loving, is you got to see Blink twice.
Yeah.
Well, I was at Trader Joe's the day after I had seen the screening. And, a lot of times they just, have conversation with you. Oh, so what's going on? And they were talking about some other movie. And I said, oh God, I saw this movie the other night. That was just amazing. And they said, what movie was it? And I said, Blink Twice. And there were 3 people who were working behind the counter. And they all looked at me and said, we cannot wait to see this film. Just based on the trailer. They are just like, we are so in on this.
That makes the producer of the movie want to burst into tears. What can I tell you? That's what it's all about.
So I've heard these stories about, for example, White Lotus. When they shot that, they went away to a beautiful resort and all that stuff. This is shot in a tropical location. Was it like that? Did you like go away to tropical vacation camp and make the movie? How did it work?
We did. It's actually in the Yucatan, and almost the whole movie is shot at this hacienda hotel called 𝐁𝐫𝐿, which you see in the film. And when we scouted it, we realized that the cast, if they wanted to, could also stay there in the hotel while we were shooting, which we didn't make anyone do because ordinarily you want to potentially get away and have some other space besides the filming where you're working all day. But once everyone saw it, they really liked that idea. And so the producers and the cast would also stay there. And it actually mirrors, it ended up making the whole experience very special. The bonding of the cast very much approximated the bonding that the guests on the island go through in the film. And it even began just slightly to approximate the 2 tones, because on the one hand, the place is incredibly beautiful, very magical. It was a fantastic place to be, and it had a bit of a creepy vibe to it too. It actually, there was a whole indentured servant slavery background to what the place had been before, in the last century, before it was turned into a hotel, that has some really interesting thematic similarities to some of the stuff the film's working through. So we all at night, we laughed about and leaned into, just like the movie. It's mostly really fun and also kind of creepy here too, a bit.
So I know, we've talked to actors who are in creepy movies or movies that are just so like dark and emotional. And as actors, I always ask them, do you have to decompress after it's done? Do you need to just like go away somewhere and just decompress? As a producer, do you have to decompress after you've worked on a film like this?
I mean, well, yes, but I think that for producers and also for a lot of actors, a lot of times when you come off a film set, which is the most exciting and intense and 24/7 part of the film business, and you don't really have a life, and even if you're shooting in your own city, you're maybe in your own bed, but really all you're doing is sleeping and making your movie for the whole period. Just the mere change of coming home and actually having your life back sort of helped you decompress. What would be really hard, and some actors do it, sometimes producers, but rarely, if you had to go right to another set from your last set, then you've missed a decompress period. But for me, just being back home with my family, it sort of allows you to decompress. But there was, I think we did all really go through the intensity of the film, which happily I feel we've captured in the viewing experience. I mean, we're getting a lot of positive feedback about how intense it actually is to sit through this film, which was part of our goal. So we're happy about that.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it because it's intense. So let's talk about a little bit, some other aspects of your career. You started by working as a DGA trainee on Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple, which, by the way, is a movie that I loved. And then you were first AD on Hook. What's the most valuable lesson you learned from Steven Spielberg?
I carry so many valuable lessons from Steven Spielberg. His mentorship is the fabric of my entire career. It's been beautifully kind of a constant a constant theme of always reaching out, always wanting him to see my films, always wanting to find ways to work together. And when I'm on set producing, rarely does a day go by that something doesn't happen that I am able to think to myself with great love and excitement, I learned that from Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
And that's part of my training. It was actually a team because the amazing, legendary, iconic Kathy Kennedy and Frank Marshall were Steven's producers on The Color Purple. And Steven was also a producer of the film. I had no idea. I literally didn't even know what producing was until I started assistant directing for Amblin Entertainment, the company. And it was really because of Steven and Kathy and Frank, seeing them produce is how I knew about what producing was and why I wanted to produce and why I pursued producing. And now I'll go against myself. I will pick one. If there's one above anything, Steven and Kathy and Frank believed that a producer's main job is to get the vision of the director onto the screen and to do everything you can to service the director and their creativity and what they need. And that's not how everyone approaches producing. It's a complicated, interesting relationship between producers and directors because technically the producer is the director's boss. You're financially responsible to the studio or the financier for the movie. So when something needs to be communicated to the director, it's often the producer's job. So there is a school of producing where that's sort of more the main way to approach it. But Steven and Kathy and Frank's school of producing was, the director may work for the producer on paper, but spiritually and artistically and creatively, the producer works for the director. And everything you do should be in service of helping the director make the best movie they can possibly make. And so that's how I produce. That's been a great lesson I have taken with me through my entire career. And it's been hugely positive and one might almost even admit successful for me because it's part of why I've gotten to produce so many of the movies I'm so proud of to have produced is because directors truly appreciate and take great notice of the producer who has that vision of what a producer's job should be.
What would you say is the most difficult request that you had to pull off? If you're doing your job right, you're actually getting a cavalcade of difficult requests because you really want the director to feel like you are a safe space and that nothing is too outrageous to ask. Doesn't mean we'll be able to do it, but a director knowing that no matter how seemingly impossible the request is, that they can come to you and ask you about it and you can have a conversation is what helps keep a director open to having great creative ideas on the set. And I definitely learned that from Steven because one of the many brilliant visionary things about Steven is specifically on Hook, as his first assistant director, we were prepping that movie for probably like 6 months. And the way Steven likes to work is he knows that when he gets into filming, he wants to be able to concentrate only on the performances and the specific job of directing. And he wants everything else to be completely handled by other people so he can focus on that. So as a result, on Hook, he wanted me from morning till night in pre-production for the entire period. I was at his side every single second because he wanted me inside his head. He wanted me to know every single thing that he had thought of and planned. He wanted me to know so that when we were shooting, I could go make all that happen. And so while we were filming, I was always aware anytime he opened his mouth to say anything, I would know, oh, is this something that had been previously discussed, that had previously been in his head,
Or is this a brand new idea that he is having right now that is coming from his unparalleled creative imagination? And daily, hourly, it would be the latter, that he'd be having an idea which was so spectacular and so much better than anything he'd ever thought of in the planning. And I would have the thrill of knowing, which no one else really did, but I would, he just came up with that right now.
Yeah.
That little bugger.
Yeah. Amazing. So when you were a little kid, and I was the same, I used to stay up late and watch the Academy Awards, and as did you. And you decided somewhere along the line, I read a story that you wanted to win one of those Oscars. And you believe in manifestation. What did that mean? What was that feeling like when you actually were on stage accepting the Academy Award?
Well, I'll start by just telling the story quickly. I was 8 years old, and my parents were going out of town, and they had my mom's mother and my dad's mother, my two grandmothers, were staying with me and my sister, and they let me stay up to watch the Academy Awards. And I'd never seen them before. I was a movie fan. I probably had heard of them, but I'd never seen them. And two of the future great strains of my life, my love for films and my sexuality, both kicked in on that night, because it was the year of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw Robert Redford and Paul Newman, and the little gay kid in me who didn't know who I was yet was like, who are they? But also simultaneously with the same amount of passion is when I watched that night and saw those Oscars and heard those speeches, I said to myself, I want one of those. And that turned into my goal for my whole career. It wasn't money, it wasn't fame, it wasn't power, and it wasn't even really, it was professional only by coincidence, but the main focus was, I want to win an Oscar. And to my embarrassment, but I appreciated the humor, but on the day that I was nominated for Best Picture for American Beauty, I heard from literally every single person that I had ever known in my life to congratulate me. And every single one of them said, you told me your goal in life was to win an Oscar. And I was like, oh my God, not only has it been my goal that I've been trying to manifest, I apparently have talked about nothing else to anyone my entire life. So in the ramp up to the Oscars, there's, all these other awards. And one of the brilliant, beautiful things about that whole experience is you're in this small group of people who are the group of people that are on all the different films that are nominated and are nominated for all the different things. And you're all on the campaign trail. So every weekend and sometimes during the weeks at all these award shows, you're with the same group of people. And you're going through this very beautiful, specific, singular bubble of the people that are on a quest for an Oscar that no one else is going through. And you wouldn't really expect, it's not something anyone else would understand. And certainly at the moments, which it sometimes do, where it gets hard or it gets long or you have a complaint, like you're not going to complain to anyone in the real world. But you can complain to this inner circle of people who are going through the same journey with you. And there is a lot of previous Oscar winners each year, of course, and their Oscar nominees. And something that I kept hearing from Oscar winners was along the lines of, oh my God, that night is such a blur. Oh my God, I don't remember a single thing about that night. Oh my God, when I won the Oscar, I blacked out and the rest is history. And I was thinking, no. This has been my one goal for my entire life. I do not want to not remember the night if we do win. And I set an intention, a manifestation for myself going into the evening to be completely present, more present than I have ever been in my entire life for that evening. And it completely worked. I have a autoplay tape in my brain of that entire night that I think I will always have. I certainly now I'm 62 and it's however many years later and it's still right there with me. And when Clint Eastwood announced our names for Best Picture, American Beauty, dancing the Bruce Cohen producers, and we hugged our families and walked up to the stage, I do remember looking down at my shoes as I was walking up the steps and thinking, I'm walking up the steps of the Academy Awards to accept my Oscar.
Wow. That's amazing. That's
Oh my
so
God.
smart to have remembered the details. That's amazing.
I passed that on to, in subsequent years where I've been lucky and fortunate enough to have other films that gotten to be on that journey. I have told nominees, may I give you a piece of advice? Set the intention to remember your night. You do not want to be one of those people who it was such a blur, you've forgotten your Oscar night. That's crazy talk.
American Beauty to me is one of the most incredible films I've ever seen. And I watched it again last night. I actually forgot so much of the movie. I forgot that Allison Janney was in the movie. The casting was so brilliant. The music, I mean, the instrumental was just insanely great. But the songs that you chose, the Elliott Smith Beatles cover, Because, was so haunting and so amazing. The scene with the bag and the dialogue that went along with it, you know, just dancing and like teasing, you know, like a little kid, like tempting me to play with it. I mean, there was not one moment in that movie that did not ring true. It was just incredible. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because Kevin Spacey, when he was asked, where's Jane? And he says, Jane not home, you know, like Tarzan. I mean, I don't know whether he did a couple of takes of that, but it was just so brilliant. And when they were at the dinner table and he picked up the plate of asparagus and threw it against the wall, was that planned?
No, I mean, I don't think that was in the script, but I do think it was something that came up in rehearsal. Obviously, it might have, you know, I wonder, I don't remember specifically, but I think we probably knew that was going to happen because we wouldn't have had enough plates and food, you know, to keep doing it. So that may be something Sam Mendes, who directed it and won the Academy Award for Best Director for his first film for American Beauty, was, you know, and now we all know the mad genius that he is, but he was so well prepared. Just to back up a minute though, thank you so much for that, Sue. And that's, you know, that is the magic of filmmaking. And it's why we do what we do, is to get a response like that 25 years later. We made the movie in 1999. So the movie's now 25 years old. It could change at some point. You never really know. But so far, at the 25-year mark, it does seem to have a legacy ahead of it. It is one of the things that is also magical but super exciting is that, and you just hear it anecdotally and you know it in the culture, it gets passed down in the high schools, generation after generation of high school kids. And to this day, high school kids, they hear about it somehow, they find it, they watch it, they love it, it moves them, they relate to it, even though it's 25 years old, and they pass it down to the next generation. So that even though technically it's rated R and they're not supposed to be watching it without a parent until they're 17, but you know, there's nothing, you can't get a greater gift as a producer than to have someone like you watch your movie 25 years later and have that type of response. I check back on it every couple of years. And of course, watching a movie you produce, it is an indescribably thrilling and exciting experience always, because you have all the enjoyment that a regular audience member can have. And then you have just these layers and levels of memories. And, every single shot could connect to some, huge memory of the movie, one of my favorite American Beauty memories is that there's that shot at the end when after Lester Burnham, played by Kevin Spacey, has had his brains blown out, and he's lying on the table, and the pool of blood is surrounding him. And Sam realized at some point that it needed to be Kevin there from the beginning, because once you spread the blood out, if the stand-in moved and Kevin came in, it'd be ruined. So Kevin had to lay there for like an hour and a half while the shot was getting lit and while the blood was getting placed. And I walked onto the set at a certain point. It was probably like 5 minutes or so before we were going to shoot, but it was all ready. And I saw it fully. I hadn't really been paying attention. I saw the shot as it is, and I burst into tears because I understood that the actor and the lighting and the cinematography and the makeup and the hair and the wardrobe and the production design and the script, everything had come together so perfectly to create one image. You would never know that there weren't hundreds of people involved. And I had the thought, I was like, how did this community all have this vision to create this one image that's so beautiful and so powerful? And I realized that was Sam, that Sam's great gift and a great gift of directors is that it's one thing to have not all directors have a beautiful, bold, brilliant vision of their movie to begin with, but B, it's not enough for them to have it. They need to be able to have that, transport that vision into the minds and hearts and souls of all the other department heads who are working on the film. So it just sort of inherently and instinctually, everyone's making the same movie. And funnily enough, I didn't plan this when I started telling that story, but the person who has that 1,000% is Zoe. And one of the things I'm totally proud of in Blink Twice is it's that combination, the script, the cast, the directing, the cinematography, the production design, the makeup, the hair, the wardrobe, the music, the sound design, and the editing. Everything has come together. It's one vision, which emanated from her, but she also had the gift to spread it to everyone else so that this community is making one work of art.
So let me. I want to get through a bunch of stuff here. And you're an out gay guy, Bruce. I finally came out publicly in 2016. It took me a couple of years. It feels like that has become sort of wrapped up a little bit in your personal mission. You made the movie Milk. I was just in the Castro last month, and I can still see that scene with Sean Penn rallying everybody. Amazing. You made Rustin last year, starring Colman Domingo, who's been on the show. Fantastic guy, beautiful performance. How hard is it to get a gay-themed story to the big screen? You've done it, obviously, multiple times.
It remains impossible. Anything out of the ordinary, anything that's dealing with a marginalized community in any extent is always very hard to get made. But interestingly, one shift that has happened recently is that literally everything is impossible to get made in Hollywood right now. So it's not that gay-themed material has gotten easier, but is a little bit like all the other material has caught up with how complicated it is. There were, back before COVID, in the glory days, there were certain genres of movies, certain movie stars, certain directors where you could just get movies made. And now, for a variety of reasons, everything is complicated to get made. And so yeah, that's just the way it is. But, that's part of your job is, trying to make the impossible happen and trying to find these ways to get something done But to your point, I do feel I happily and blissfully, I have 2 full-time jobs now in my life, is producing film and working in politics and social activism, and LGBT causes and politics is my other completely full-time job. Milk was really a super exciting and watershed moment for me, because that was the first time that the 2 great passions and jobs of my life had been combined in one project. But I've been really lucky to get to do that in other projects since, and want to continue to. And my favorite and entirely relevant Milk story at the moment is in January 2008, Sean Penn walked up to me on the set of Milk, and he knew I was a fellow activist along with him. And he said, "I have a really good friend coming to the set today, and I'm really excited for you to meet her. She's amazing. You 2 are going to love each other, and she's going to be president of the United States someday." And that is how I met Kamala Harris in 2008.
Oh God, I just got a chill. I just got a chill. Oh my God.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yep. Wow. And she was Attorney General of the city of San Francisco at that point. I mean, no one had heard of her outside of San Francisco. She hadn't run for statewide office. But that was Sean's prediction in 2008.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I think he's about to be right. Thank God.
From your mouth, as they say. God knows it's my other full-time job right now, and happily so.
So you also produced Silver Linings Playbook in 2012, and I think it is, I bipolar 1, I was diagnosed back in 2000, so that's my mental health journey. Is I've had my ups and downs. I work with the LA County Department of Mental Health. I have a partnership with them, and I think this is one of the best movies ever made about mental health and mental health awareness. And I would imagine you've gotten a lot of feedback like that. When you hear stuff like that, what does that mean to you?
It's David O. Russell, brilliant writer, director. His son has struggled with bipolar issues, which he's been out in public about. And as a result, it was why he connected to the story and why he was inspired to make it. And as a result, he didn't really do any research. We didn't really have mental health experts. It was the combination of Matthew Quick's book, and Matthew actually is a mental health expert, the author of the novel, and had worked in mental health hospitals. So it was all pretty accurately fact-checked as a novel to begin with. The combination of that, and then David was making a personal movie about his personal experience. He didn't really feel the need to check on Wikipedia about anything. And as a result of that, though, we hadn't really we hadn't, rushed out to show it to mental health experts. We hadn't run it by, we didn't have a consultant. We were just making this deeply personal movie, which had the beautiful side effect of not really having exposed it to that community until we started previewing the movie. And the first preview we did, which I believe was in Orange County, and then any subsequent preview or screening, premiere, Q&A, at the end of the movie, people would come up to us, and there were the people who loved the movie and were going to be the fans, but there was a different look and a different vibe, and we could see it coming. And they were people who either were suffering with bipolar themselves, or knew family or friends, or know family or friends who had, that wanted to share their story with us. And to a person, every single one of them was so deeply moved by the film and felt so seen and found it so helpful that was, I'm getting emotional, just reliving it, because I'm sort of back on that first night. We didn't know, we just hoped people would like the movie. And then by a half an hour after the first screening, we're like, oh, we've actually really done something that could be helpful. And one of the things that I love about Silver Linings Playbook is the moral of the story. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen that movie, but it's 20 years ago, or so, who cares, however many, 10. The moral of the story is take your meds. And it turns out that that is an extremely powerful, extremely important story. And it's the biggest struggle that people suffering from bipolar and all of their friends and family and doctors who want to treat it are dealing with is trying to get people to take their meds. And what we heard time and time and time again is that for many people who did not want to hear that message or didn't let it sink through from themselves, from their doctor, from their friends and family, but when they heard it from Pat Solitano and when they heard Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, it inspired them to take their meds. And that's pretty extraordinary, and also goes to the magic of narrative filmmaking if you do it right.
You know, I got one last thing for you. So Blink Twice is coming out on the 23rd. When you have a movie come out,
also has some mental health themes.
There you go. Exactly. When a movie comes out, do you get nervous that day? Do you go to the theaters that day? Do you read the trailer? I mean, how do you handle the day a movie of yours opens?
Well, one of the things I love most about producing is getting to do it in all different media. And it's sort of what gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. And I've had the incredible experience of getting to produce on Broadway. And it sort of highlighted the contrast more, because on when you're Broadway, when you're doing a musical or a play, there is an opening night. And at 8 p.m., you're sitting in your seat, although it's actually usually 6 or 6:30 on opening nights because of the reviews. And the curtain goes up, and it's only that one time and that one place in the world is your opening, and you're there with the audience, and everyone sees the world premiere of your work together, and the critics write their reviews of them. They've actually seen it in the last day or two, so they have their reviews written, but the reviews come out that night. So that experience kind of further complicates the movie opening experience, which is not that at all. You know, you're in the case of Blink Twice, happily, we're opening in 2,300 theaters just in the United States alone. We're also opening in countries all over the world on that same date. So there isn't really a way to get a hold of a unification of that feeling, you know? It's really spread out, and the reviews start coming out the week before. And so the reviews are all over the place, and 1,000 people are seeing your movie all over the place. And in most cases, well, even in all cases, I mean, even in the case of American Beauty, which was universally loved, still nothing's unanimous. There's always, you know, people are having a wide variety of different experiences with your film, and some of it you get a sense of, but the actual specific, the vast majority, 99.99% of everyone who sees Blink Twice, I won't actually ever know what they really thought of it. They're, you know, all over the world. So it's a strange and interesting experience, but it's extremely fun, extremely exciting. I don't truck into getting nervous too much because it's completely beyond your control. You know, you've done the best movie, you do the best marketing campaign, you've done everything you can, you hope for the best, but then on actual opening day, how many people are going to go to which theaters and in which cities and overall, and what they're going to think of the movie and what the buzz is going to be that weekend? The audience takes it over, and it's theirs. You've turned it over and given it to them. So I think, you know, for me over the years, what's become really important to me, and what I tried to impart to directors and collaborators, is to really have that moment where you have your own deeply held opinion of what you think of the film and whether you're proud of it and what you love about it, because ultimately the audience is going to take it from you, and there's nothing you can really do about their response. And yes, it is, you know, I often do like to go to a theater on opening night and check the audience. And particularly on one of the super fun things about Blink Twice, I had not really worked in, certainly not in the horror genre at all. I had done a thriller called The Forgotten starring Julianne Moore. But the combination in Blink Twice of the thriller horror moments and the laughs are textbook crowd experiences. And that's been one of the great things about the advance. We've only had a couple of, really like 3 or 4 now of advanced screenings with big crowds, but seeing this movie with a crowd is you get a real charge because you can really tell. With the drama, you're not really sure exactly how people are feeling unless you hear like an occasional sniffle. But with Blink Twice, between the laughs and the screams, it's really, really, really fun and fulfilling to watch with an audience. So and as good as preview audiences can be in Hollywood or New York, it's never the same as going to an actual theater on Friday night where random people who had nothing to do with the movie have paid their hard-earned money to see your film. So I'm voraciously excited to be in a theater somewhere on that Friday night, August 23rd, and see what the audience thinks of Blink Twice.
Well, the movie is terrific. Despite the turn of events, I thought the movie was really fun. I mean, it's got a little bit of everything to it. The horror genres there, but it's also, as you said, it's really, really entertaining. It's really fun on top of everything else. It's a great ride, which is what you ask for when you pay that whatever it is, $15-16 for a ticket. So congratulations on the movie. Thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And let's get together sooner.
My pleasure. I'd love to. It's really fun talking to you two, and great questions, and love the conversation.
You know, I want to
say
just one last thing. And I'm not giving anything away about the movie, but when we left, Steve and I went to see it together. And when we left the theater, we were in underground parking, and it never felt so creepy to be in underground parking and not know if I was going to get out of underground parking after seeing this movie. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to get out of here? So that's a testament to, I was squirming during that movie. So, and I laughed too. Steve and I laughed a bunch. So anyway,
absolutely.
Just wanted to share that.
There you have it. There's Bruce Cohen, producer, not executive producer. Producer. I always forget that. The executive producer seems like the bigger job, but the producer is actually doing all the work, right?
Right. They're definitely doing all the groundwork.
Yeah. Fun movie. Blink Twice. August the 23rd. Enjoy it. It's a ride. It is just a ride. And we can't say, obviously, we didn't give away anything in that conversation. It's just something you got to see. Sue, great seeing you. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the Culture Pop Podcast on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify. On YouTube, hit the like button and feel free to leave us any kind of message, any kind of question, whatever you got, reaction to today's show. On Apple, Spotify, 5-star rating and a positive review is always, always welcome. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.